So a little bit about myself. I've been in the Navy for just a little bit over 6 years. I was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia before I got stationed here in Pasadena. I was on a ship called USS Kearsarge. It's an amphibious assault ship over there. I did one tour, one deployment with that ship where I got to visit, I believe, 7 countries. I went to Crete, Greece, Oman, Spain, Bahrain, Dubai, back to Bahrain, and then back to Spain one more time before I came back home. So that's kind of like this is a few of the countries that, or a lot of the countries that you'd be able to visit utilizing the United States Navy as a career path. I'll let BM1 explain kind of his story, and then we'll go into why I joined the Navy and what it's done for me, and then what other opportunities we have for young adults like yourself to jump into.
So I've been in the Navy for about 14 and a half years. I did my first 6 years in the Navy. I was stationed out of Hawaii on board the USS O'Kane and the USS Chung Hoon. Both of them are guided missile destroyers. During my 2 tours there, I did a lot of deployments over there, 4 of them to be exact. I spent a lot of time in Guam, Japan, Tahiti, went to Korea a few times, Thailand 5 times. And then once I finished my 6 years there, I took 3 years and went out to Yorktown, Virginia, where I worked at port operations, just dealing with the ships coming in and out of ports to do the ammo onload and offload for the ships that come in. After that, I took a 5-year sea tour on board the USS Pinckney out of San Diego, California, where I completed 2 deployments there. One of them to include the what we call the COVID deployments when COVID started back in 2020. We did our drug operations there, where we seized almost $1 billion worth of narcotics and marijuana out in the middle of the ocean. After that, I returned home and then got stationed here in Pasadena. With the United States Navy, the reason I joined, I honestly, it was just like one of those last resort type things. Growing up, I didn't have it all, but a recruiter came and talked to me one time, and then my grandfather was in the Navy as well, so he gave me a lot of insight about it. And that's kind of basically why I joined. And 14 and a half years later, I still represent my grandfather, represent myself on making good choices and stuff. So that's pretty much about myself.
So for me, what brought me into the Navy, I originally joined right out of, or I went to college for 2 years out of high school on a running scholarship up in a small college in Idaho, where I'm from. I did 2 years there, and then realized that doing an engineering type degree there wasn't going to be easy while being an athlete. So I kind of I was split between what decision I had to make in my life, whether to, pursue being an athlete or pursue, a career. And I was a runner in college. So I knew there wasn't much for me after my 4 years in college as far as professionally as an athlete. So I knew that, college was definitely, or choosing the career path was definitely going to be more beneficial for my long-term goals. So I decided, what can I accomplish, or what do I need to do to be able to accomplish my degree in college? And unfortunately, I didn't have the funding that I needed to be able to continue college without being an athlete. So I was lucky to meet my wife now, but my girlfriend at the time. I met her father, that was in the Navy for 25 years, and he utilized the Navy to get his master's degree and fulfill his career of 25 years. And he told me, hey, why don't you do 4 years in the Navy and then just get out, and then you can go back to school if you choose, and you can go to school during the time. So I decided it was probably a good decision for me to choose that career path so that I can do my college. And then obviously now I've been in for 6 years. I've figured out that the Navy can provide more than just education. They provide education while you're serving, on top of giving you a career. So I'm planning on retiring from the Navy after I finished my 20 years as well. Just because it's a huge, it was a huge stepping stone, and it continues to be a great career path for me. So some of the examples, right? Let's speak about the reasons, right, on why I chose these, right? So we have a few things called the GI Bill. Does anybody? I know that we're open for chat. Let me pop this little chat thing up. Does anybody know what a GI Bill is? Has anybody heard of a GI Bill? I'll give it like 10 seconds. If nobody answers, I'll explain what it is.
Please elaborate.
Yeah. So our GI Bill, we have it's called the post 9/11 GI Bill. Basically, what it does is that it pays for your you do 90 days active duty. The minimum contract that we have right now for active duty is 3 years. So even though that you have to only do 90 days, you realistically have to do 3 years for that post 9/11 GI Bill. Once you finish your 90 days active duty / 3 years active duty contract, you're afforded the opportunity to go back to school for all your tuition paid for. So it's 100% tuition. There's no tricks with it. That includes tuition and fees, books, and housing while you're going to school. So basically, if you have a house that you're interested in getting as well after you finish your 3 years, that you can utilize the VA home loan, which I'll go into later. Well, you can utilize a VA home loan to be able to get your house with, and when you go to school, they'll pay for up to your BAH allowance. So over here in California, well, Los Angeles specific, BAH is $33,400. So basically, you go to school and they'll give you $3,400 to pay for your housing, and they'll pay for your schooling, so that all your effort is pushed into schooling and not having to worry about working a full-time job to afford housing as well. And that's one of the biggest opportunities that got me in was, hey, look, I'm going to have a house when I get out of the military that the Navy's going to pay for, and I'll be able to go to school. Now, obviously, things have changed for me a little bit, but that is the basis on why I decided to join. So that was the post 9/11 GI Bill. Now let's talk about like specific reasons on why most people join nowadays. We have really competitive pay for entry-level jobs, right? Most entry-level jobs are going to be minimum wage. What's the minimum wage here in California? I know most of you probably know that, right?
15.
About 15, right? I think it's 14 something. Am I wrong? I'm not 100% sure.
I think it's
Okay.
15 now.
It is 15. Okay. So 15, that's going to be most young adults coming right out of high school, right? That's going to be the pay that you are going to get with like no education or no background experience in any kind of job. All right. Now for someone like me, I live in Idaho. Does anybody want to guess at how much my minimum wage is in Idaho?
$7.
It's close. $7.25 is half of what you guys make here. So if you can imagine, coming out of high school, $7.25 is not going to be any amount of money that's going to get you even remotely started in a nice house in Idaho, or it's basically going to pay for the bare minimum necessities for you. So that wasn't an option for me. Most people should not strive to make that an option for themselves, right? Strive for success. So minimum wage is there for people for the minimum, right? So we have competitive pay. So basically you start out, everybody in the military, no matter what branch you serve in, we all start out as E1 through E3, depending on what you obtain, because, depending on certain circumstances, you can end up leaving to boot camp as an E3, and that's starting out at about, I want to say.
So,
yes.
so E1 to E3, those are different like pay classifications?
Yes, correct. So E1 is basically the starting rank. You'll have E2 right after that and E3. Right now, myself and Petty Officer Denton, we're both E6s. It usually, for an E6, it usually takes about 10 years to get there. Fortunately, I was able to get there faster. BM1 was able to get there fast as well. So that's the great thing, is you're able to achieve a higher pay grade faster in the Navy than any branch. I will say that 100%. because it's based off testing source. So as long as you study whatever job classification you have, you'll be able to advance faster. But based on back onto the competitive pay, I'm sorry. You will start out off of E1. It's roughly about $2,800 to $3,000. And it goes, I would say about on average, each pay grade goes up about $300 to $400 every pay grade. And you get a pay raise every year as well. So no matter how you do right in your career, you'll get a pay raise every year that's voted in from Congress. So you don't really have to, you're always keeping up with inflation as well. So that's where that competitive pay goes.
Yes, Megan, that's per month.
Yes, that's per month. Sorry. So that pay, I know it sounds a little low, right? Than what most people make here in California, but that's your base. So if you're making $3,000 base, and then you're getting the basic allowance for housing over here as well, which is $3,500, then you're realistically making $6,500 per month, that's where it gets competitive, right? So over here, you can expect to make, if you get BH and your base pay, about $6,000 starting out. That's in California. So depending on where you're at, like I said. And then the education benefits, right? You can get, not only do we have the GI Bill, but we also have this thing called tuition assistance. So you're able to get education benefits while serving on active duty. So for myself, I go to school part-time while serving active duty. You don't have to, it's not mandatory, but it's a good way to set yourself up for success. So you can choose to go to any community college. You can choose to do online school. A lot of my friends went to Penn State while active duty in Virginia, and just kind of complete one class at a time. A good thing about that is if you're only doing one class, one or two classes per semester part-time while, working, you're able to, achieve straight A's pretty easily. So you're chunking away at your degree very, I would say a little slower than you'd want to, but at least that your overall, the overall thing is to get good grades and get your degree. So while you're doing that slowly, you're able to focus on your grades and achieve that. There's also going to be the housing, right? So most people in the Navy, right, or most people in the civilian, I say civilian world, most people who are not in the military, they have to pay for food, they have to pay for housing on top of having to, get transportation, get to their job. I call the Navy the all-inclusive. So you're able to live on base, so you don't have to commute. So which means you don't have to have a vehicle. You can ride a bike or walk, and they pay for your on-base housing, which is kind of like if anybody's ever stayed in like a hotel suite where it has like a full kitchenette, that's basically where you'd be living while you're not on the ship. Sorry, we just went black in here.
I got it.
You got it?
Just move and it will auto,
Motion, sorry.
yeah, motion sensor.
Thank you. So it's basically living in a hotel suite. So you don't have to pay for that. You get your base pay. You're able to not have to drive a car unless you want to. And then all three of your meals are paid for on base or on the ship as well. So you don't have to, that's all inclusive as well. So basically the only things that you're going to have to pay for while you're doing this as a career, or while you're doing this to benefit yourself is, your own things. Like, if you want to have a car, your car payment, or you want to have a phone, your phone payment. But the base things that you're going to pay for in general in life anyways. So the big payments are already going to be paid for from the Navy, which was another big reason for me, is because I wanted to be able to get some money underneath me to be able to get a substantial income to save, right? Because that's ultimately what you want to do in the future. Let's see here. I'll let BM1 Denton talk for a little bit on why he thinks that it's the most beneficial reason, or why the Navy is the most beneficial branch to go through.
So again, speaking about why I joined, I was talking, about my grandfather. He pointed out a lot of things when it comes to traveling. People like to go through places, like Hawaii. We'll just use Hawaii, for instance, right off the bat. A lot of people, inside the States want to be like, I want to go to Hawaii, I want to do this and do that. but the Navy paid for me to go there. The Navy paid me, not just, paid for my flight, but paid me to be living there and be able to actually enjoy my time there while I was actually like home ported. I did a lot of traveling. Like I said, I've been to a lot of places, and a lot of these places you would never even dream about. I never thought in, my whole entire life that I would ever have a chance to go to Korea, have a chance to go to Bahrain, have a chance to go to Japan. And I got to do these things. So traveling was honestly a big deal for me when I first joined, especially when I did in my first 3 years of being in the Navy, I did 3 deployments. So all that travel and, people, they'll spend, thousands and thousands, my parents alone, they spent about 4 grand in total cost, paying to buy a flight, get a hotel in Hawaii, and they stayed for about a week and then getting a flight back. So they spent about 4 grand when I only spent like $800 to travel, to go home and to come back. Because like he said, the military pays for my house, the military pays for my food, and pays me to be able to do all these things. So traveling is one big deal on that. Going back to the education, a lot of the classes and a lot of the schools that we have inside the military, most of these things can traverse into college credits. I've taken a lot of courses within my job specifically, such as being able to drive small boats, be able to navigate waters as a small boat driver, understanding the buoy system and stuff like that on how harbors work and everything. All that transitions into college credits. Now it's up to really the school itself on if they want to accept those credits. So, it's kind of like I want to go to, my hometown is in Texas, Waco, Texas. So my college is Baylor, but Baylor may not take all of the training that I've taken here in the military, but then I go to, San Diego State University and they take all the credits. So that just makes me a little bit faster on getting my degree than what a normal person would on going to college. Another big thing about a huge thing, he was talking about the ranking system. The ranking system is really big and it's really easy to promote. A lot of people, they find their happy job, they get a degree in accounting, right? And you start off at the bottom of the food chain, but there's no telling how long it really is until you're able to move up the chain on your career path. With the military, we spoke about the E1, E2, and E3, right? So those are your 3 basic ranks that you will come into in the military. Hopefully come in as an E3, such as I did. So just to put this in, a small perspective on how easy it is. Between E1 and E2 is 9 months. You have to serve a minimum of 9 months in the military to be even, which is an automatic promote. It can take people a couple of years before they get promoted. From E2 to E3, again, is another 9 months. So 18 months, you've already jumped up 2 ranks. Versus, and then when you go from E3 to E4, that's a 6-month waiting period. That one's not automatic because, and Petty Officer Burgess did bring up that, you have to test for those. But for me, I came in as an E3. So waiting that 18 months between E1 to E2 and an E2 to E3, I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to do that because during high school, I was in the JROTC program. So that made me eligible to come into the military as an E3. And then all I had to do was just wait 6 months. So after I got out of boot camp, went to my school for my job, I was that next testing cycle, I was already eligible to test for E4. I didn't make it that time, but I made it the time after that. So within a year and a half of being in the military, I was already in E4. And then 2 years later, I ended up picking up E5. And that is very, like, becoming an E5 in 4 years is almost impossible. I ain't gonna say it's almost impossible, but it's like unheard of. Because you look at it as an E5 in the military, as a top leader. Think of me as a manager at that point. How long do you think it would actually take someone starting off as a regular job to be able to pick up manager in 4 years? You know, I've never worked really much in civilian life other than high school. So I don't know how much things have changed when it comes to that, but I think becoming a manager with no education in 4 years is pretty unheard of. So, and then I picked up E6, which you'll consider an E6 is like an area manager in charge of multiple stores. I picked up E6 at 12 years. So on average, it does take about 10 years to do it. It took me, after making E5, it took me about 7 years to do. So within 12 years in the military, I was already I'm an E6. Eligible up for now for E7. So E7 is kind of like the district owner.
Nice, congrats.
That I would have to compare it to. It's like a district owner in civilian world. And you're in charge, you know, at that point, you're making so much money at that point. So much money just on the base pay. Like I think our base pay or mine's a little bit more than his because I've been in the military longer, but my base pay right now is almost sitting at about, I have to look it up. I think the last time I looked at it, it's almost $4,100. So that's $4,100 per month just for being in the military. And that's not including all the other pays that I get. So, you know, you talked about the BAH, the BAS, you know, housing, food, and even if you're stationing on a ship, just being attached to a ship in the Navy, you get paid for that. You get paid for that as well.
Yeah, that was one thing I wanted to ask you guys about, because, you know, you talked about like the ways you can promote, but what are some of the, you know, what are some of the jobs within the Navy that you can do? I know that obviously sailor is probably a pretty big one, but I mean, if you're running an entire, you know, military branch, there's got to be transportation and desk jobs. And so what are some of the things that you can do in the Navy besides including being a sailor and also outside of it?
Right, so there is multiple jobs. There is, I mean, you can think of it as coming, you know, if you like cooking, we have cooks in the Navy, and that's their actual job. You know, we call ourselves petty officers because that's our rank. You know, we're petty officer first classes. His actual job is a quartermaster. My actual job is a bosun's mate. So there's a lot of fields. So, you know, going into, you know, office jobs, you know,
What are those? Can you talk about what a quartermaster does and what a bosun's mate does?
So me as a bosun mate, I brought up a little bit that I drive the small boats. I drive the small boats on board the ship. I do a lot of the rigging as far as when a ship has an anchor out at sea, we will control that anchor. We will put that anchor in the ground to ensure that it's holding. Sorry. We also drive the ships. Bosun mates actually drive the ships as well. You know, and you got to think, you know, I was 18 years old when I joined the military. Just got my driver's license at 18 because my mom was one of those strict ones that let me get it beforehand. But an 18-year-old kid driving $1 billion warship, you know, not even a year into the Navy. We also, you know, the ships, they refuel out at sea, and it's a pretty cool evolution when you got two ships driving side by side, not even 200 feet apart, and they're connected to each other by wires and a big old fuel hose coming across that wire. Yeah, the bosun's mate, we are the ones that hook that up and refuel. On smaller ships, like the ones that I've been stationed on, we will also help when helicopters come in. We'll give them signals to be able to land properly on the ship, and we'll also be the ones that tie it down in case of heavy seas and stuff like that. The biggest thing I like to mention about my job was we're in charge of every single piece of life-saving equipment on board. I like to tell people that because, you know, you're putting everyone's life's hands inside of an 18-year-old kid that just joined the military, you know, graduated school and coming in. But being a part of my job and getting the leadership and learning these things really makes it rewarding, even though it seems like it's a lot of work. Because it's going to be that one moment that someone falls over the ship, that one moment that, you know, something happens, but you taking care of that life saving, that one piece of equipment that saved that person's life. So it's really beneficial. My job is highly beneficial. And it goes towards a lot of things that I can do when I get outside the military. You know, a lot of people, I don't know how y'all feel about painting, but you know, my job when we're in port, the reasons why the ship looks gray is because we paint them. So I can actually take that, just that one small portion of my job and move forward and, you know, open my own paint business when I get out. You want to elaborate on more what a quartermaster does?
Yeah, so I'm a quartermaster. I'm a ship navigator. So him and I work together basically most of our time in the Navy. I navigate the ship, so I tell him where to go, and then he drives the ship. That's basically all I do. It used to be a lot more artsy, where, you know, on the old school, you would see like a nautical chart, something like it looks like a map of the sea. And we would actually plot on that chart, utilizing like our pencils and a compass and our calculators and doing everything by hand. Now it's gotten pretty easy for my job because we have this thing called virtual management system, which is our electronic navigation system. So it's like Google Maps for the ship. So the only difference is instead of like, if we want to go from point A to point B, we still have to plot it on there. Google Maps, you know, doesn't, whereas like you say, I want to go from, you know, San Francisco to Pasadena, California, it tells you the fastest route to get there. We have to utilize ourselves to be able to find the fastest route using calculations, but it's easier for us to plot on the system and then just have somebody say, hey, we got to turn right now because this is our track. So everything is kind of futuristic now. It's really beneficial. We have this thing called US Maps. That's one of the things I wanted to elaborate on. So every job in the Navy has a ladder. It's spelled LADR. It's where you're expected to be in that career pipeline. So as a quartermaster, it'll say 0 to 2 years, you're expected to be an E3 with these qualifications. And then it'll go all the way up to basically 30 years in the Navy. And by that mark, that's where you should be on the average. So if you're before your ladder, that means you're advanced. If you're after your ladder, it means you're a little late. Right now, I think my ladder for 6 years, I'm supposed to be an E4 and I'm an E6. So I'm very advanced right now, but that's based off of like how much you want to put in work, how fast. So that's why I'm saying like, I'm very passionate about the Navy and I'm very passionate about my job. So if you really put a lot of effort into your job and knowing everything you know about that specific job, you will advance faster than anybody in that career field, because not everybody has the same strive that some people would have. So you're basically competing against every other person that's in the military with that same job. So that's where it makes it easy for other people to stand out that do have that. I say that the Navy has every job that it takes to run a whole city. So electricians, we have managers, we have supply, we have plumbers, we have every single job you can think of, we have that job, and we have a trade for it. So not every job requires education. Some jobs require trades. So if any of you young adults are more interested in the trade world and you become an electrician in the Navy, you can transfer that electrician over to the civilian sector. And the same thing, whereas like, you know, once you become in the management position, you're going to be able to transition out. Even if you don't obtain a degree or obtain an education level, you'll be able to transition out into a career. You want to hit that again? You'll be able to transition out into the civilian sector with that management experience into another management position. So for example, real life experience, my best friend was in the military. He decided to just do 4 years. He got out. It's called an aviation bosun mate. Launch mechanic. So basically launches the aircraft off the aircraft carriers. It doesn't really have a lot to do with SpaceX, but he applied to SpaceX because he felt like his experience as a manager in the Navy would help him for his background. He got flown out to SpaceX for 3 different interviews, and he ended up getting hired to be a propulsion tech over in Brownsville, Texas. But they decided that they needed some more help in the Starlink side. So they actually sent him up to Seattle, Washington to do build Starlink satellites for a year. And then they're going to bring him back down to Brownsville. So that's like a real life experience on like, he has no education background, not to talk this individual. I love him. He's my best friend, but no education background whatsoever. Didn't go to college, but just the fact of having the Navy as on your resume really benefited him into different career paths. So that's something to think about too, because like the average person wouldn't really qualify for SpaceX. And I would say based off of his qualifications, maybe he didn't qualify, but based off of his experience, he qualified. And that's something to look at as well. I do know that some of you guys are probably curious on what the qualifications are for certain jobs, right? Coming into the Navy. There are 0 qualifications. So if you coming in the enlisted side, which is what both of us are, there are 0 qualifications that you are required to have other than, so everybody, sorry, let me take that back. You have to have the basic requirements for enlistment to qualify for all jobs. So all jobs are open. What your job placement is based off of is it's called a ASVAB, which we're probably all aware of. It's based off your ASVAB scoring. So let's say you don't score as well as you would like to for a job that you have in mind. Probably 15 years ago. Yes. So probably 15 years ago, you would come in and you would take an ASVAB and you would score kind of low and they'd be like, okay, these are the jobs you qualify for. It's this or nothing else. Now, if you take an ASVAB and you say, I didn't do as well as I'd like to, but I really want this job, we say, okay, go study, come back in a couple months or come back in a month, and we'll have you take it again to try to get you qualified for that certain job, right? Our job is, our jobs have transitioned from Navy recruiters to Navy college and career counselors. So our job is to counsel you, to counsel you into different career paths that are going to be beneficial for you, right? We don't want to place you into a cook position if you want to work on motors. It doesn't benefit the Navy because realistically, if we put you in a cook position, you want to be a mechanic, you're probably not going to be very happy with your job, which in the long run, right, you're probably not going to stay in the Navy and you're probably not going to learn anything that's going to benefit you in the long run. So we figured out that if we put you somewhere you want to be, chances are you're going to retain better into the Navy, you're going to enjoy doing what you're doing, and you're going to get something out of it if you decide that I don't want to do this after your first 3 or 4 year contract. So it's a win-win for both of us, right? So that's why we do that nowadays. I'm not sure, how long have we been speaking, Megan?
I would say about 30 minutes. So I actually was hoping we could open it up to questions. If anybody, students, if you have any questions, and I'll remove the spotlight. And if anybody has questions and wants to unmute themselves or drop it in the chat, now's your time. All right, one question from Luis. Can you elaborate more on the difference between sea and land duty?
Yeah, so when it comes to sea and land duty, right? So the Navy has this thing called a seashore rotation. And a seashore rotation is strictly based on what job you get. So some people may have 5 years out at sea, and that means being stationed on a ship. That ship does not always have to be out at sea. Yeah, it does not always have to be out in the middle of the ocean. You can be at home port and still be considered at sea duty. So land duty, what we call shore duty is like what we are on, like me and him are right now. We're not attached to a ship. We are actually Navy, like you said, Navy college and career counselors right now. So that's, we're gonna be doing this, like for my seashore rotation, I have to spend 5 years on a ship, and then I get to go spend the next 3 years on shore duty or land duty. So that's kind of like how the seashore, and again, that's all based on what job you pick and how long you've been in. So and how long you've been in the military, that's going to be subject to change.
And not every job has a seashore rotation. Some jobs are shore based. There's no jobs that are strictly sea based. Every job will have it. Every job will have a seashore, but not all jobs will have a. If you know what I'm saying, there's no job that just is strictly sea. Everybody will have some form of shore duty eventually.
Some are only land based and don't have a sea part.
Correct.
All of the seashore, all of the sea duties have land duties.
Correct. And those jobs are going to be mainly like computer intelligence jobs, only because they go through such a strict training pipeline. that they're utilized better on short rotation. So a lot of those guys are stationed in the Pentagon, so they just are stationed in the Pentagon, and they just transferred to different fields within the Pentagon for that job.
Awesome.
And then,
Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was going to read the next question from
Yeah.
Destiny. How long do you have to be to train for to be in the Navy? I assume, Destiny, you're asking how long is basic training?
Yeah, so basic training was 8 weeks. They changed it to 10 weeks because they added a 2-week professional development training on the end because they wanted to make sure that when people were going to the fleet, we call it the fleet, when people were going to their first commands, they had some form of a leadership training before they got there because what they were lacking was they were getting to their first commands, but not really understanding the structural leadership purposes in the Navy. So they did add it as 10 weeks, and then whatever your job you do decide to, or whatever job you do get in the Navy, that will go right after boot camp as well. So like for myself, I had 10 weeks or 8 weeks of boot camp, and then I had 8 weeks of my training for navigation school for a total of 4 months. And then I believe his was 3 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, my school was 4 weeks. So, and then I had, a total of 12 weeks before I got sent out to my first ship. A lot of that's, a lot different, my fiance, she's a gunner's mate. She does a lot with guns and stuff like that. So her training was a lot more. And plus she had to go to 2 separate schools. So she was actually in school for 2 years before they brought her to the ship. So it all depends, again, it's all going to depend on what job you pick.
And that full training timeline, it goes into your contract as well. So if you sign a 4-year contract and you have 2 years of school, then technically you're only serving for 2 years. You're only doing your actual duty for 2 years on top of that school. So that's a really beneficial thing because you get all that training for free, and then you get 2 years of doing it, and then you basically get out of the military with that training that you were doing.
Does that
Thank
answer your
you.
question, Destiny?
She's out there. Destiny, did that answer your question? Probably doesn't want to unmute herself. Do we have, is it stressful being in the Navy?
So it can be, I am not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. It can be stressful, but the Navy does provide resources. I'm a father of 4. And so going on deployments, leaving kids behind, leaving my family behind in Texas, it does become stressful, and then the work itself can become stressful. But there are resources such as Fleet and Family Support Center that provides you with those counselors that for free, again, all this is for free, that you can talk to. We also have Military One Source that will set you up with a 12-week session with another counselor. And that one, depending on the counselor, it can be of your choosing. So we do, it is a stressful job. I mean, but if you actually look at it, I kind of give the bigger, broader picture. Every job can be stressful. It doesn't matter as, what job it actually is. I worked at CC's Pizza before I joined the Navy, and, getting that morning rush after, Sunday morning church, it became stressful trying to get all these pizzas in there, trying to make them all. So every job it does come with stress, but the Navy does provide the resources and help that you will need or that you may want, to help you with that stress. We also go through, I believe now it's semi-annual stress training to help you, understand the resources that you have better, understand ways to cope with stress, to alleviate stress. So there's a lot of resources that will help you out with it.
And to elaborate on that quickly, and like you said, every job is going to be stressful, no matter what job you have. Even school is going to be stressful when you go to school. It's how that school or how your job helps you cope with your stress, right? That's the most important thing, right? You don't want to work for somebody or work with somebody or something and not have them coping with your stress, right? So that's the most important thing. And the Navy does a really, really, really good job on like, hey, if I come to work and I'm like, hey, I'm really stressed out today, this is what's going on with my family. there is no doubt that my boss will just let me go home. They're just gonna be like, hey, look, today's not your day. Let's just have you go home so you can take care of your family or do whatever you got to do. So, and it's they're not gonna be mad at you for doing that. They're gonna be appreciative of the fact that you're explaining to them why you're stressed out, because they don't want somebody who is stressed, right? They don't want me coming to work stressed out talking to young adults, because that's not going to be a good environment for them. So they're very understanding, and that's the most important thing, is how your employer or how your school helps you cope with those stress levels.
Thank you, gentlemen. Students, do we have any other questions before we let these petty officers, did I get that correct?
Yes. That's correct.
Go for the day? Okay, thank you so much for your participation, students, and gentlemen, thank you so much for your very valuable information. Again, students, if you took notes and you completed the reflection for the college and career exploration and you attend 5 of these chats, you will earn 1 credit. You can earn up to 5 credits if you go to 25 chats. And we need to make sure you guys signed in. Actually, I checked and made sure that you all signed in while the gentlemen were talking. So you guys are all good to go as long as you complete your worksheet. If no more questions, then you guys are dismissed. We will have another career chat at 3 o'clock. If you guys want to stay on, and then we will have a career chat with a licensed clinical social worker and therapist at I would say about probably going to get started about 3:05. We'll see you guys then.
All right.
Make a quick question.
Yeah.
Would you mind if I put my email on there just in case they do want to reach out?
Absolutely. Yes, that'd be great. And if you want to leave, I don't know if you guys have business cards and materials. I was going to come
Yeah.
chat
Yeah.
with you during the break and we'll kind of get some stuff together.
And if anybody has questions that they didn't want to put in the chat, you can always, I'll put my my phone number up there too. You can always text me. You don't even have to say who you are. I'll answer the questions. I'm pretty cool.
Here's my phone number. I guess.
Okay.